Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, your home for everything that goes, bump in the dark, and your fan stories told right here. Today's story comes from Maddison, and it is titled The Bridge. Before we dive into tonight's chilling tale, I've got a message for my fellow time travelers. Are you ready to take your paranormal adventures to the next level? Need more spine-tingling mysteries and time-bending thrills? Then listen up. By joining the Paranormal Nightshift Patreon, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early ad-free access to episodes. That's right. Skip this very ad you're hearing now and jump straight into the eerie unknown without interruptions. But that's just the beginning. Patreon members also get first access to our ebook series, Paranormal Time Traveler. Follow our fearless investigator as they journey back through time to uncover spine-chilling, listener-inspired mysteries. It's a supernatural adventure inspired by you, our amazing night shifters. Don't forget, new episodes of Paranormal Nightshift drop every Monday and Friday evening, with surprise episodes popping up when you least expect them. So stay tuned, stay curious, and don't miss a single twist in the story. Ready to join the Paranormal Nightshift family? Head to patreon.com/paranormalnightshift or click the link in the description. Step into the unknown with us, because every moment is just the beginning of the journey. Now, let's get back to tonight's story. Every high school has its fair share of ghost stories, tales passed down from one generation of students to the next, growing wilder with every retelling. My high school was no different. There was the story of the student who died in a freak science lab explosion, his spirit said to linger around the chemistry room, knocking over Bunsen burners and scattering beakers. There was the girl, supposedly locked under the stage in the performance hall, where she eventually starved to death. Her desperate cries for help supposedly echo through the walls on quiet nights. And then there was the boy who'd collapsed in PE, running laps until his heart gave out, all because a merciless coach pushed him too far. But for all those tales, there was always one that lingered more deeply, a story that sent a chill up your spine and made you think twice before sneaking around the school grounds. This story was darker, a little too detailed, and a little too believable. It went back to the 1970s, long before I was born, to a summer when two boys, both troublemakers, broke into the school. According to the story, these boys had a reputation for messing with the janitor, pulling cruel pranks, sabotaging his equipment, and making his life miserable. One summer night, they decided to take things further. They broke into the school, forcing their way through the locked doors, laughing as they trashed classrooms, overturning desks, scrawling graffiti across the walls. They thought they had the place to themselves, but what they didn't know was that the janitor was still there. He was deep cleaning the school, going room to room with his old clunky vacuum. And, as the story goes, when he walked in on the two boys, something inside him snapped. Maybe it was the stress of years of harassment, maybe it was just bad timing, but whatever it was, he wasn't himself. He turned on the boys, still clutching the vacuum, and decided to teach them a lesson. No one knows exactly what happened next, but a week later, when the boys hadn't shown up at home, their parents and the local authorities launched a search. They combed the school and the nearby area until hours later they found them in the creek behind the school. One boy was found lying face down in the shallow water, his body marked with scratches, bruises, and rope burns around his neck. The other was hanging from a tree branch near the water's edge. The janitor's vacuum cord looped tightly around his neck. The janitor disappeared, or so they say. No one saw him again, and no one wanted to talk about what had happened. The case was swept under the rug, another sad tale hidden in the dark corners of town history. Years later, after hearing this story more times than I could count, my friend, her boyfriend, and I decided we needed to see the creek for ourselves. We were skeptics, or at least we thought we were, and figured that with a ghost box in hand, we could capture something, anything, that might put the legend to rest. It was the sort of thrill we'd been craving, a test of our nerves. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon when we made our way down the narrow path that wound behind the school, leading toward the creek. The air felt heavy, thick with the heat of the day, and I remember the sound of birds overhead, filling the silence with their constant chatter. My friend's boyfriend held the ghost box tightly, his fingers gripping it like a lifeline. None of us wanted to admit it, but there was a tension among us, an unspoken fear that grew as we neared the bridge. As we stepped onto the bridge, the atmosphere shifted. It was subtle at first. The birds, so loud just moments before, went silent, as if something had hushed them all at once. The air, already humid, felt even denser, pressing down on us, making it hard to breathe. The trees stood still, their branches unmoving, the tall grass around the creek unmoved by even the faintest breeze. It was as if we'd stepped into a different world, a place untouched by time or sound. I felt the hair on my arms stand up as we walked to the center of the bridge. My friend looked over at me, her face pale, her eyes wide, but she said nothing. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the ghost box, crackling softly, waiting. Then, out of nowhere, a voice burst through the static. It was young, panicked, and so full of fear that it made my stomach lurch. "Help! Help me, please!" it screamed. The voice was desperate, raw with terror, like someone reaching out from a place of unimaginable darkness. The scream echoed in my ears, sending a wave of dread down my spine. We looked at each other, all of us frozen in place. And just as the voice faded, we heard something else, a low, deep growl. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through the wood beneath our feet, filling the silence with a sense of malevolent energy. In that moment, something primal took over. Without a word, we turned and sprinted off the bridge, stumbling over each other in our haste. As soon as our feet hit the path, the weight in the air lifted, the sound of the creek returned, and the birds resumed their chatter as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the shadows, something still lurking near that bridge. We didn't speak as we walked back to the car, our footsteps quick, almost frantic, as if whatever had been on that bridge was following close behind. The ghost box was silent now, as though it had nothing more to say, and none of us dared to bring up what we'd heard. It was only when we were back at my friend's house, the safety of walls around us, that we looked at each other, the reality of what had happened settling in. But we never talked about it again, not because we didn't believe it had happened, but because we believed it too much. Deep down, we were afraid that if we spoke of it, if we acknowledged what we'd heard, it might reach back out, dragging us into whatever haunted place it called home. To this day, I still can't bring myself to go near that bridge. With that being said, Maddison, thank you so much for your story. Remember, if you want to support the show, head on over to our Patreon page. Your contributions help us keep the lights on, the stories flowing, and the time traveler fueled up for his next adventure. But hey, if you can't support us financially, no worries. Just sharing the show with a friend or rating us on your favorite podcast platform goes a long way. And if you've got a spooky story of your own, we'd love to hear it. Share it with us right here on Paranormal Nightshift. You never know, your story might just become the next chapter in the Paranormal Time Traveler series and told here on the show. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled for the unexplained, your ears open for the unheard, and your minds open to the possibilities.